On a distant planet, a grim fortress stood, until a deadly force parted from the heavens and descended upon the keep. Though brought to ruin, the ashes of that place hold an artifact of impossible power. A gun that can kill the past. Over time, the fortress was rebuilt, and some who hear the legend would risk everything for another shot. Welcome to Enter the Gungeon. Enter the Gungeon is a 2D dungeon shooter developed by Dodge Roll and published by Devolver Digital. Each game starts with choosing your character at a place called the Breach. This is a safe space in this game where you can take a breath before entering the Gungeon. It's populated with the 4 starting characters: the Convict, a more explosive style; the Hunter, with a crossbow and a dog; the Marine, a supply and tactical build; and the Pilot, a more basic build that gets shit on by the community. After choosing your character, you're set to begin your journey. Let's begin with the game plan. The goal of each character is to make it down through the Gungeon and claim the gun that can kill the past, so that we can, kill the past. Now, saying that makes this game sound easy. It's really not. We have to descend 5 floors of increasingly difficult enemies to make it down to the bottom. Each floor has many rooms which are mostly filled with enemies, but every now and then have a chest, a shop, a boss room, or various other things. After finding the boss room, it's a good idea to first complete the level to make as much money as possible, to be prepared for the fight as best you can. After exploring all the unknown, the last obstacle remaining is the boss. There are many different bosses you can face in each level, and they all have a specific attack pattern. Once we reach stage 5, you can find a blacksmith who helps create the bullet that can kill the past. He needs 4 parts to forge it, which include the prime primer, the arcane gunpowder, the planar lead, and the obsidian shell casing. After the bullet is forged and the final boss is defeated, we have all we need to kill the past. Let's finally begin at level 1. Level 1 is officially known as the Keep of the Lead Lord. It appears to be a castle-like complex with libraries, gardens, and metalware. Here the game introduces the basic forms of all the enemies you'll find later in the game. There are bullets with weapons, bloodbonians, and a variety of other slow shooters. In the boss fight, however, we're introduced to the first life-threatening enemies we see. Here you have a chance of encountering the king and his wizard, the twins and their minions, and the Gatling Gull with his machine gun. Although difficult, if you expect to beat this game, it's advised to flawlessly kill these bosses without taking any damage. Moving on to level 2, also known as the Gungeon proper. It is a prison complex with iron bars and leaking water. There are also traps around the area, and enemies are slightly more adapted to taking bullets. Fire is also introduced more commonly here and can really end a game fast if not taken care of. Moving on to the bosses, we have the Gorgon with her poison, the Beholster with 6 different weapons, and the Anaconda with his unpredictable attacks. The bosses here bring new attacks like poison and lasers that are common in later levels. In level 3, also known as the Black Powder Mine, enemies are getting serious. Here, poison is extremely common, and many enemies are immune to certain attacks like fire and poison. New enemies like spiders bring new challenge and introduce bullet hell to every room. Bullet enemies with mining hats can be seen alongside mine-themed creatures. When it comes to the boss fight, there's 1 special and 3 normal bosses you can find. Starting with the normal ones, the Cannonball Rog, a giant living cannonball, the Mind Flayer, an octopus-like creature, and the Treadnought, a bullet in a tank, are the normal ones. The Blockner can be accessed by finding a hidden rune before you start the game, where an old guy will warn you about the challenge. Level 4 is known for its icy aesthetic, also known as the Hollow. Many enemies like the blobs from before are ice-themed and have ice-style attacks. This level is meant to be where slain bullets are sent to, although it's unknown if they're here to be buried or used in some unholy necromancy. The bosses in this level include the High Priest, whose head is a gun, the Wallmonger, who chases you down as you run away, and the King Pillars, who are 4 statues that are possessed by souls of warriors. There is one more boss though that can actually spawn from the 2nd through 4th floors called the Door Lord. This enemy has a 1% chance of appearing and is really fun to battle. I found this out unexpectedly during recording, and it surprised me when the door I usually go through to see the boss was the boss. In level 5, we see the highest grade enemies the Gungeon has to offer. Fully evolved Blabonians, advanced bullets, and too many others to count. This level is fiery and extremely easy to accidentally die in. There is no shop, instead a blacksmith who sells items like before and can construct the bullet of the past. Once you're ready, the final boss, also known as the Dragon, is waiting for you. He has 2 stages which literally define bullet hell. Stage 1. The dragon shoots ricocheting bullets and homing bullets from every direction. This usually claims a few hearts and leads you straight into Stage 2, which is interesting to say the least. In Stage 2, you have to dodge from pocket to pocket and wait for the dragon's heart to show you so you can end him. After around 2 cycles of this absurd attack, if the player is able to finish off the dragon, he can claim his prize. Following the dragon's skeleton leads you to an aimless void where you can find the gun that can kill the past. To shoot the gun and kill your past, you need to construct the bullet that can kill the past, which has parts from hidden areas in previous levels. Once you have both the bullet and the gun, you can shoot yourself and bring you back to your past. Now let's dive into the past of the 4 base characters, plus 1 more for fun. We'll begin with the convict. To sum it up briefly, she was the head of a criminal organization and was betrayed by her most trusted ally. She chose to go to the Gungeon instead of a life imprisonment, and when you shoot the bullet to kill her past, she has a chance of getting payback on the person who betrayed her. The Marine was working at a research facility where interdimensional portals were being worked on. Unexpectedly, an interdimensional horror appeared through a working portal and wreaked havoc on the facility. The Marine, attempting to help, had jammed his gun and decided to escape, leaving the scientists and his comrades behind. If you shoot the bullet to kill his past, you're able to kill the interdimensional horror and save the day. The pilot was a sort of space smuggler working with his best friend Z. One day he was confronted by the Space Patrol Force and abandoned the ship, leaving his best friend to his fate. Feeling burdened by this, he decided to enter the Gungeon to save his friend. If you shoot the bullet to kill the pilot's past, you're set up into a spaceship v spaceship situation and have to defeat the much larger patrol ship, with nothing except the guns equipped on board. The hunter was at one point entering the manor owned by Dr. Wolfenclaw. This doctor will appear and greet the hunter, saying that he's thrilled to be able to use her in his latest experiment. This doctor then traps the hunter in a cryogenic pod, and she stays there for more than 1,000 years until she somehow escapes. Shooting the bullet that can kill the past causes her to go back 1,000 years prior to defeat Dr. Wolfenclaw and reclaim her life. There are a few other characters, but the last one we'll be discussing is the robot. To unlock this character, you have to find a broken television in level 3 and haul it to the blacksmith on level 5. Once repaired, the character becomes playable at the breach. If you use the gun that can kill the past on this character, he apparently goes back 100 years prior to fix his mistake. In his past life, he was ordered to defeat the last leader of the human resistance and failed. With the power of time, he's able to end the last human resistance and rest. The first extra level is the Oubliette. To get to the Oubliette, you have to find 2 keys and locate the fireplace on the first level. This room is big and open and easy to identify. You then have to find and push a barrel of water to the fire and put it out. Behind where the fire used to be, there's a switch which causes a new room to appear on the map. After 2 keys are used to open the hatch in the new room, you unlock the new floor. This new floor is filled with poisonous enemies and dying bullets scattered around. Enemies are much harder than floor 1, and it's easy to lose health here if you're not prepared. Moving on to the boss. If you haven't seen already, there are several enemies that are unlike the bullets we normally see. They're called the Blabonians. These blobs are quick and have special abilities. Some are poisonous, some are icy, but all of them want to harm the player. The boss of the Oubliette is called the Blobulord, who is a leader of some kind of his blob allies. In the boss fight, he periodically explodes into many smaller blobs and shoots in all directions. In the Oubliette, you should also be able to locate an item called the Old Crest, which acts like a shield and protects you from damage once. Next, there's the Abbey of the True Gun. This level is accessed through level 2 and requires you to find a burial room and have the old crest item from the obelette. Once you give the old crest to a shrine, a tomb will move and you will have unlocked the Abbey of the True Gun. Here enemies are even harder and have some aesthetic changes. Nothing too special until you get to the boss fight. The boss here is an old king. In level 1, you have a chance of battling the Bullet King in a fight. This guy is much like that fight, except more difficult, with each attack being harder to evade than his counterpart. Once defeated, he drops his loot and leaves behind a shrine to the Caliber, the goddess of bullets. On level 3, the resourceful rat's lair can be accessed. To access this floor, you need to find an explosive weapon and a nod key. In a random room in the 3rd level, there will be 4 rats running around showing you the room you need. After locating the room, you will have to find a trapdoor covered in dust by walking over it or using a blank. After unlocking this trapdoor, you are dropped down onto a minecart and sent further into the ground until you need to use a blank or explosive weapon to reveal the path. Then you use a nod key on another hatch and you're finally sent down into the maze. In case you don't know, the resourceful rat is a character who'll steal your items if left alone. If the player has too many items, or just leaves something behind, the rat will find and steal your stuff. When he does manage to steal, he leaves behind a note basically telling you that you suck and ending the note with a block of cheese pointed in a specific direction. You need to find all 6 different notes he leaves in order to see all the different directions the cheese points to. In the maze, you then follow the direction of each block of cheese on the notes by order, which will lead you to the boss. The boss here is the resourceful rat himself, who brings one of the hardest and most creative boss fights in the game. You have to avoid fast attacks and navigate through bullets until you reach the mecha part. In this part of the fight, the rat controls a mecha suit with another full health bar and insanely hard attacks. Finally, his last stage is Punch Out. You then have to defeat the rat in a game of Punch Out and you can finally claim victory. The loot you gain are his armor and a gun set, along with a chance to get a python as a pet, who will follow you around if you feed it. Second to last, we have the RNG department. To get access, you'll have to sell 2 guns and a master bullet to the creep on floor 4. Master bullets are only dropped by bosses if the player takes no damage during the fight, meaning it's really difficult. Once the requirements are met though, he blows up the sewer grate, allowing access to this new floor. The RNG department is unique because all rooms are fixed and the enemies in them vary only a little. This floor mimics the place where creativity dies in adults, the office. Every enemy is dressed in business clothing, the Iron Maiden becomes a fridge, and bullets wear little suits. To clear the floor, you'll have to defeat the boss Agnum, the same guy we had to give the items to in order to get here. In this level, he rides a helicopter on top of the building you're sent to. This is confusing because the floor is supposed to be under the 4th floor, but who cares. His fight can be summed up simply as more bullet hell. He fires projectiles, missiles, and fire. He's also very mobile, making certain weapons ineffective. He gives standard boss loot, but you can't get a master bullet from him. And to return back to the Gungeon, you have to jump off the building. This also doesn't make much sense, but who cares again. The final hidden level, and perhaps even tougher than the boss fight from level 5, is called Bullet Hell. To access, you'll need to have killed the past of the 4 starting characters first, and then defeat the dragon once more. After you defeat the dragon as usual, you'll continue forward to a large platform in a dimension called the Aimless Void. At this point, a skeletal hand will reach through the ground and pull you down to Bullet Hell. Here, tougher enemies will fill up rooms, and if you stay long enough, you'll make it to the final fight of the game against the Lich. This boss has 3 different phases to beat, almost like the Rat King, but just more bullet chaos. Stage 1 is a normal boss fight. Extremely hard not to take damage, but still possible. His attacks are fast and difficult. In Stage 2, after you think you've won, the Lich pulls you through the ground and starts attacking you on a smaller platform, making it even more difficult to avoid. Then, after defeating Stage 2, you descend onto a new battleground and watch as he emerges out of the bullets on the ground and unleashes his final stage. It's similar to Stage 1, but with much more difficult attacks. Through persistence and some good old use of the dodge roll, the Lich can be defeated, and with this victory, you finish the main storyline. Thank you for tuning into this Indie Game Spotlight. I'm Tilanos, and see you later.